As a urologist and andrologist for 15 years, I have the privilege of witnessing extraordinary stories of transformation and rediscovery in the intimate lives of various couples. Among many memorable cases, I met William and Elizabeth, both in their 50s, who came to my office on a fall afternoon. The couple shared a love story spanning 3 decades, but in recent years, they felt that something had changed in their intimacy. Elizabeth, a university literature professor, was the first to speak up during the consultation. With a hesitant yet determined look, she expressed her concerns about the changes her body was experiencing during menopause. The hot flashes, vaginal, dryness, and mood swings were not only affecting her physical well-being, but also her self-esteem and willingness for intimate moments. William, a civil engineer, initially more reserved, gradually felt comfortable enough to share his own challenges. The pressure at work, combined with some difficulties with erections, had created an invisible barrier between them. The fear of not being able to satisfy his wife made him avoid moments of intimacy, creating a cycle of anxiety and frustration. As a healthcare professional, my first step was to address their concerns with empathy and naturalness. I explained that the changes they were experiencing were completely natural and more common than they imagined. Maturity brings with it hormonal and physical transformations that can affect sexual life, but it also offers a unique opportunity to rediscover intimacy in deeper and more meaningful ways. During our conversation, I introduced the concept that sexuality and maturity goes far beyond the sexual act itself. It is a privileged moment to explore new forms of pleasure, develop more open communication about desires and needs, and strengthen the emotional connection that already exists between the couple. I suggested to William and Elizabeth a simple initial exercise. Dedicate 15 minutes a day to reconnect, without the pressure of it needing to lead to a sexual encounter. They could start with relaxing massages, synchronized breathing exercises, or simply lying together, embracing, sharing thoughts and feelings about their day. The couple's response to this suggestion was surprisingly positive. Elizabeth commented on how long it had been since they allowed themselves such a moment of intimacy without expectations. William, on the other hand, seemed relieved to understand that there were ways to rebuild the connection with his wife that didn't solely depend on his sexual performance. By the end of that first session, a subtle shift in their dynamic was already noticeable. The simple act of creating a safe space to share their vulnerabilities had initiated a process of transformation. I scheduled a new appointment for the following week and suggested that, during this period, in addition to the reconnection exercises, they keep a small journal about their feelings and discoveries. I also explained that we would begin a multidisciplinary follow-up. Physical issues would be addressed with appropriate medical interventions. For Elizabeth, we discussed options for hormone therapy and vaginal moisturizers, while for William, we assessed the need for more detailed tests to address erection issues. But equally important, I recommended sessions with a sex therapist specializing in mature couples. As I watched them leaving the office, I noticed how they walked closer to each other, their shoulders lightly touching, as if the simple conversation about their challenges had already begun to break down the barriers they had built. It was just the beginning of a journey of rediscovery, but the glimmer of hope was already visible in their eyes. The following week, William and Elizabeth returned to the office with a completely different energy. Elizabeth carried with her a small notebook where she had recorded her experiences, and William, though still a bit shy, showed more openness to sharing his thoughts. The daily 15 minutes of reconnection had become precious moments for the side couple. Elizabeth recounted how, on a particularly stressful evening after a tough day at university, the simple act of resting her head on William's lap while he stroked her hair brought a sense of intimacy she hadn't felt in a long time. "It's like we're dating all over again," she commented with a radiant smile. William, in turn, confessed that the synchronized breathing exercise, which initially seemed a bit strange to him, had become his favorite part of the day. "When we breathe together, I feel like we're truly connected, without pressure, without expectations," he explained. This simple practice was helping to reduce his anxiety about sexual performance. During our consultation, I introduced new elements to further enrich your journey of rediscovery. We discussed the importance of non-sexual touch and how it can serve as a bridge to reconnect the couple with their sensuality. I suggested sensual massage exercises, starting with non-erogenous areas of the body, such as the back, feet, and hands. The sexual therapist accompanying them had reported significant progress in the couple's communication. They were learning to express their desires and needs more clearly and respectfully. Elizabeth shared how empowered she felt being able to openly discuss her need for lubrication during intimacy, something that had previously embarrassed her. William's exams revealed that his erectile difficulties were primarily related to psychological factors and stress, although there was also a slight hormonal imbalance that could be easily treated. We began a treatment combining low-dose oral medication with anxiety reduction techniques. A particularly interesting discovery emerged when the couple started exploring different times for their intimate moments. They noticed that, unlike previous years when they reserved only evenings for intimacy, they now found more energy and willingness in weekend mornings or early afternoons, when the children were already grown and out of the house. I also introduced the concept of mindfulness applied to intimacy, teaching them to be more present during their time together, focusing on the sensations and emotions of the moment, rather than worrying about performance or outcomes. This approach was especially helping William reduce his anxiety about erections. Elizabeth shared a particularly touching observation in her journal. She wrote about how, for the first time in years, she felt truly seen and appreciated by William. The massages and moments of connection were helping her reconcile with her transforming body, finding beauty and sensuality in her maturity. The couple's progress was visible, but there was still a long way to go. I explained that the journey of rediscovering intimacy and maturity is like a dance. Sometimes we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but the important thing is to keep the rhythm and the connection with your partner. Every small achievement should be celebrated, and every challenge faced as an opportunity for learning and growth together. At the end of the session, I proposed a new challenge for the following week. In addition to the exercises they were already practicing, I suggested they create their own connection ritual, something unique and meaningful to them as a couple. It could be anything, from a special Sunday breakfast to a relaxing bath together. The important thing was that it be a moment dedicated exclusively to nurturing their emotional and physical intimacy. The connection ritual suggested in the last session had a surprising impact on William and Elizabeth's lives. They chose to create a special moment on Sunday mornings, when they would prepare an elaborate breakfast together, followed by an hour of conversation on the balcony of their apartment, watching the sunrise. This simple yet meaningful moment was becoming the foundation of a new form of intimacy. During our third consultation, Elizabeth shared how this ritual had transformed into something much more than just breakfast. We started talking about things we hadn't discussed in years, she recounted, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. Yesterday, for example, William surprised me by talking about his youthful dreams, some of which I didn't even know about. Physical progress was also noticeable. With hormone treatment and the regular use of vaginal moisturizers, Elizabeth was feeling more comfortable during intimate relations. The more open communication with William allowed her to express her needs naturally, without embarrassment. It's not just about lubrication, she explained. It's about feeling safe to say what works and what doesn't work for me. William, in turn, was responding well to the combined treatment. The low-dose medication, along with anxiety reduction techniques, had given him more confidence in his intimate moments. But most importantly, as he himself emphasized, was the shift in his perspective on intimacy. Before, I saw every encounter as a performance test, he confessed. Now, I understand it's much more about the connection we build together. During this session, I introduced new elements to further enrich your intimate life. We discussed the importance of sensory stimulation, beyond touch, how scents, music, and textures can enhance the sensual experience. I suggested exploring essential oils during massages, creating special playlists for your time together, and experimenting with different fabric textures in your bedding. The sex therapist had noticed significant progress in how the couple handled their expectations and frustrations. They were learning to view challenges not as individual problems, but as opportunities for mutual growth. Elizabeth, for example, had started sharing with William how the changes in her body affected her self-perception, and together they were discovering ways to celebrate her mature beauty. A particularly touching moment occurred when William revealed how the massage sessions had transformed his perception of Elizabeth's body. "Every mark, every curve tells our story," he said, visibly moved. "I see beauty where before I only saw changes." I also introduced the concept of data nights, adapted to their new phase of life. They didn't need to be elaborate or expensive. The important thing was to set aside exclusive time to nurture the couple's connection. Elizabeth came up with the idea of transforming an empty room in the house into a couple's corner, with soft lighting, comfortable cushions, and a small water fountain, creating an environment conducive to their intimate moments. The progress in communication was reflecting in other areas of their lives. William noticed how he was more present and focused at work, as the anxiety related to their intimate life had significantly decreased. Elizabeth realized she was more willing to try new things, not just in intimacy, but in her professional life as well. During our conversation, we also discussed the importance of maintaining realistic expectations. I explained that it was normal to have better and worse days, and that the key was to keep communication open and honest, without judgment. The focus should be on the process of reconnecting, not on specific sexual performance goals. At the end of the session, I proposed a new exercise for the following week, the sensory journey. Each day, they were to explore a different sense during their intimate moments. One day focusing solely on touch, another on sounds, another on scents, and so on. The goal was to heighten their sensory awareness and discover new forms of pleasure and connection. The journey of the senses, proposed in the previous session, proved to be a transformative experience for William and Elizabeth. During our next meeting, they shared how each day of sensory exploration had brought surprising discoveries about themselves and each other. Elizabeth enthusiastically described how the day dedicated to hearing had been especially revealing. "I had never noticed how William's voice changes when he's relaxed," she commented. "We discovered that reading poetry to each other creates an intimacy we hadn't imagined possible." This simple exercise had opened a new channel of communication between them, allowing them to express desires and feelings in a more poetic and less direct way. William, in turn, was particularly impressed with the day dedicated to scents. The combination of essential oils during the massages had created powerful sensory memories. "Now, when I smell lavender in the office, I immediately reconnect with those moments of intimacy," he shared, smiling. This olfactory association was helping to maintain the connection even during the most intense workdays. During the consultation, we introduced the concept of mindful touching, a practice that combines elements of mindfulness with tactile sensory exploration. I taught specific techniques of conscious touch, emphasizing the importance of being fully present in the moment, observing different textures, temperatures, and pressures, without rush or expectations. The sexual therapist had noticed significant progress in how the couple was handling oral intimacy. Through more open communication and specific relaxation techniques, both were feeling more comfortable exploring different forms of pleasure. Elizabeth, in particular, had overcome old insecurities related to her body image, allowing herself to fully enjoy these moments. An interesting aspect that emerged during our conversations was how technology was becoming an ally in her journey of rediscovery. William had found guided meditation apps for couples, which they began using during their moments of connection. Elizabeth discovered podcasts about sexual health and maturity, which helped normalize her experiences and brought new ideas for them to explore together. I also introduced the concept of pleasure mapping, an exercise where each partner maps their pleasure zones, identifying areas of higher and lower sensitivity. This process was helping them rediscover their changing bodies and communicate their preferences more effectively. "It's like having a personalized treasure map," Elizabeth joked, "and every day we discover something new." The couple's corner they had created was evolving. It now included a small library with books on intimacy and well-being, cushions, with different textures for their sensory exercises, and a special box where they kept their essential oils and other items dedicated to their moments of connection. During our conversation, we also discussed the importance of maintaining an element of surprise and novelty in the relationship. I suggested they create a suggestion box where each could put forward ideas for special moments, from breakfast in bed to a surprise massage after a tiring day. The key was to keep the spirit of adventure and discovery alive in their relationship. William shared how he felt more confident in taking initiatives in intimacy, something that had become a challenge in recent years. It's no longer about proving something, he explained. It's about creating special moments together. Elizabeth agreed, adding how this new dynamic had brought more lightness and spontaneity to her intimate life. At the end of the session, I proposed a new challenge for the following week, the creation of a shared sensory diary, where they could record their discoveries, sensations, and special moments. This exercise would not only serve as a record of their journey, but also as a tool to identify patterns and preferences, helping to deepen their intimate connection even further. The sensory diary proposed in the last session brought surprising revelations for William and Elizabeth. As they reviewed their notes together during our session, I noticed how this exercise had deepened their connection even more. The act of writing about their experiences was helping them process their emotions and discoveries in a more conscious way. Elizabeth had noticed an interesting pattern in her notes. We noticed that we feel more connected on the days when we dedicate time to small gestures of affection early in the morning, she shared. These seemingly simple moments, like a prolonged hug or a lingering kiss before heading off to work, created a kind of emotional anchor that lasted throughout the day. William, in turn, was especially proud of how they had evolved in practicing mindful touching. In his notes, he described how the anxiety about performance had been replaced by a genuine curiosity in exploring different forms of connection. It's like we're discovering a new language together, he reflected, a language made of touches, glances, and sensations. During this session, we introduced the concept of reconnection rituals for moments of stress or distance. We developed specific strategies for when one of them was going through more challenging periods at work, or when family matters required more energy. The idea was to create small moments of intimacy, even on turbulent days. The sex therapist had observed how the couple had become more skilled at handling moments of vulnerability. Elizabeth now felt comfortable expressing when she wasn't in the mood for more intimate encounters, without it causing tension or discomfort. William had learned not to interpret these situations as personal rejection, understanding that desire has its own cycles and rhythms. A particularly interesting aspect that emerged from the sensory diary was how different stimuli affected their level of connection. They discovered that soft instrumental music increased their sensitivity to touch, while citrus scents left them more energized and open to playful moments. These discoveries were helping them create environments more conducive to different types of intimacy. I also introduced the concept of emotional check-ins, moments dedicated to sharing not just physical sensations, but also emotional states. This exercise was helping them maintain a deeper connection, even on days without more intimate physical contact. Elizabeth noticed how these moments of emotional vulnerability often led to more natural and spontaneous physical intimacy. The couple's corner had transformed into a true sanctuary of connection. It now included personalized elements that reflected their discoveries in the sensory journal, from fabrics with specific textures to a carefully curated selection of music. This space had become a physical symbol of their journey of rediscovery. During our conversation, we also discussed how the changes in their intimate life were positively impacting other aspects of their relationship. William noticed how they were more patient with each other in daily tasks, while Elizabeth observed a significant improvement in her ability to resolve conflicts constructively. The regular practice of the proposed exercises was bringing benefits beyond the intimate sphere. Both reported improvements in sleep, reduced stress levels, and an overall heightened sense of well-being. Elizabeth noted how her hot flashes had decreased in frequency and intensity, possibly due to reduced stress and increased endorphin production. At the end of the session, I proposed a new challenge for the following week: the creation of a personalized intimacy map. This map would not only focus on erogenous zones, but would also include places, moments, and activities that evoked feelings of connection and pleasure. The idea was to create a visual guide of their journey of rediscovery, something they could consult and update continuously. The intimacy map proved to be a powerful tool in William and Elizabeth's journey. During our last formal consultation, they brought their richly detailed map, filled with notes, drawings, and even small photographs of places significant to their story as a couple. It was a visual testament to their transformation. Elizabeth had organized the map in layers, representing different aspects of their intimacy. The first layer focused on emotional connections, moments and places that evoked deep feelings of love and companionship. The second explored physical sensations, mapping not only zones of pleasure, but also gestures and touches that had become especially meaningful in their new phase. William contributed a unique perspective, adding a temporal dimension to the map. He had noticed how different times of the day and week affected their connection, and had creatively incorporated these observations. "We discovered that Thursday afternoons are surprisingly special for us," he shared, smiling. "That's when we have the house to ourselves and can reconnect without rushing." During this final consultation, we reviewed all the progress made over the past few months. The transformation was remarkable in many ways. Physically, Elizabeth was responding very well to hormone therapy, and her menopause symptoms were well under control. William had found a natural balance with his medication, using it more as occasional support rather than a constant necessity. But the most significant changes were evident in their dynamic as a couple. Communication had become more fluid and natural, especially regarding their intimate desires and needs. The connection and mindfulness exercises had seamlessly integrated into their routine, creating moments of intimacy that went far beyond the physical aspect. The sex therapist observed how the couple had developed their own new language to express their needs and desires. Small gestures and words had taken on special meanings, creating an intimate code that strengthened their bond. This nonverbal communication was helping them keep the flame of intimacy alive even during busier or more challenging times. A particularly touching aspect was how their discoveries were inspiring other couples in similar situations. Elizabeth had begun sharing some of her experiences in a support group for women going through menopause, always respecting the privacy of her relationship, but offering hope and encouragement to others facing similar challenges. William, in turn, had become more open to talking with close friends about the importance of seeking professional help for sexual health issues. His journey was helping to break the stigma around this topic, especially among men his age. During our final conversation, I emphasized that this was not an end, but rather a new beginning. The intimacy map they had created was a living document, which could and should be updated as they continued their journey of discovery. I suggested they maintain the habit of recording their experiences and discoveries, now not as a therapeutic exercise, but as an ongoing celebration of their connection. We talked about the importance of maintaining some of the rituals they had developed, adapting them as needed to the natural changes in life. The couple's corner would continue to be their sacred space for reconnection, a physical reminder of the commitment they had made to nurture their intimacy. As we said goodbye, Elizabeth shared a profound reflection. "We've learned that intimacy and maturity isn't about reclaiming who we were before, but rather about discovering who we can be now," William added. "Each day is a new opportunity to reconnect, rediscover ourselves, and love each other in a deeper and more conscious way." As a professional, witnessing the transformation of William and Elizabeth was a powerful reminder of the potential for healing and renewal that exists in every relationship. Their journey showed that, with the right support, open communication, and a willingness to explore new paths, intimacy and maturity can be a phase of profound discovery and meaningful connections.